Gender equality is a human right, which means that women are entitled to live with dignity and freedom from constraints and fear. However, even though women are entitled to such a privilege, they are not always granted this right due to societal pressures. When comparing chapters 36 and 38 of A Thousand Splendid Suns by Khaled Hosseini and Michael Kimmel's TED Talk on why gender equality is good for everyone, we can see that they share a common theme. They both demonstrate how gender equality has a direct impact on the foundations of a successful society. Now, while A Thousand Splendid Suns chooses to focus on the impact with a lack of gender equality, on the other hand, the TED Talk promotes gender equality and highlights all the positive outcomes that aid in creating a successful society. So ultimately, we can compare these two texts to realize the importance of gender equality in a culture. So, whenever anyone talks about gender equality, we immediately think of women's struggles to become equal and all the feministic approaches that towards society standards. Now, this is where I want to begin because I want to eliminate this stigma that surrounds women's rights, that gender equality is just about women. Now, certainly women all over the world are fighting for their rights and have come a long way to gain respect. But in regards to the word equality, it means we need to have a level playing field, which also means that we need to incorporate the other players in the game. Now, if you see what I'm getting at, gender equality includes men just as much as it does women. So, considering that, we need to begin by addressing men's sense of entitlement over women. In so many cultures, women are oppressed because they are seen as property. So, these sexist cultural views are illustrated perfectly when it comes to Rashid's relationships with his wives. Essentially, this atmosphere is created by the Taliban with the endless restrictions they established towards women. So these laws put in place allow Rashid's brutal beatings to be considered legal. Even if Lalia were to complain to any officials about the abuse, her opinion would be deemed irrelevant because she's a woman. So Rashid proves his ownership over Lalia and the irrelevance of her opinion when he threatens to give their daughter Aziza away. So on page 282, he says, "Whose word do you think they would believe?" And immediately, Lalia is silenced because she knows it's true that the Taliban wouldn't believe her. And so this exemplifies why men need to be included in gender equality because certainly women are considered to be suffering, but ultimately the prevalent male sense of ownership of women is creating this fear and oppression within these victims. So let's now go to the other hand, where in North America, so a society that we are more familiar with. So we have Michael Kimmel, and he gives us an unbiased opinion about how equality needs the cooperation of both sides. So looking at gender equality through the point of view of men. So we see that men are appointed to silly traditions of masculinity, in a similar way as women feel appointed to traditions like cooking and housework, cleaning. So no matter what way you look at it, both sides can equally claim discrimination. And so, what do we say? Equality means that everyone deserves the same opportunities and that nobody should be expected of anything. So, simply put, by Michael Kimmel, it's not a zero sum game, but rather a win win for everyone. So, applying that same rationale towards Rashid and Lalia, Rashid is clearly appointed to very strict traditions of masculinity, which create this inequality between him and his wives. So, at any rate, the sense of entitlement of men can be viewed as a tradition of masculinity, and that it shouldn't be expected of men to rule over their wives. So, furthermore, A Thousand Splendid Suns gives us three different views on the instatement of the Taliban. So, Husseini does a great job on giving us different perspectives to gain a better insight on the feelings of the citizens from the Taliban. So, to begin, we have Rashid, who has the least amount of limitations. He only has to grow a beard, wear a turban, and attend a mosque. So, whereas Miriam and Lalia, they can't attend school, they can't work, and they can't leave the house without Rashid, and that's only to name a few limitations. So, between Miriam and Lalia, though, Lalia has been educated, and so she's aware that her rights are being oppressed. So, therefore, she is less accepting of the Taliban. Miriam, on the other hand, has not been educated, and she's always known Rashid's control. So, therefore, she has a little less understanding on Lalia's attitude. So, when Lalia tries to express her dismay through the knowledge that she does have, she's once again silenced by Rashid on page 283. with what good are your smarts to you now? What's keeping you off the streets, your smarts or me? That's a quote from Rashid, and that illustrates how little emphasis is put on educating women and more on the role that women serve. And having these three viewpoints allows us to justify why gender equality is needed. So, as we can evidently see that men have way less limitations and women have a long list, but also that women are deprived of a human right to be educated. So, another opinion that we can consider is that of Michael Kimmel, as he flat out claims that he is a generic human being, so being middle class white male. So, most people find that hearing gender equality from a man seems like an objective opinion versus from a woman, when in fact, no matter who says it, the evidence is still clear that we lack gender equality in society. Now, Kimmel brings to our attentions the real results behind actual studies that have been conducted by psychologists and sociologists, so that it has been proven that shared housework and childcare result in overall higher happiness levels between spouses and decreased levels of depression. So, in Rashid and Lalia's case, if Rashid would have helped with the housework and childcare, chances are that they'd live in a happier and more peaceful home environment. So, this enforces once again the idea of double standards and that no one should be expected to do a certain job. Also, that the list of limitations shouldn't be longer for any one side, but equal for both, in order to create a peaceful and balanced home life. But bottom line is, gender equality allows everyone to live the lives they want to live. With all that in mind, we can also analyze the environmental impacts of gender equality. So, the country of Afghanistan is in turmoil, and that can be used as a symbol to represent all the relationships falling apart by the introduction of the Taliban. So, Lalia explains on page 280 that restaurants she used to know were painted black and used for interrogation centers. And Miriam and her also try to escape and flee Rashid's house, although proven unsuccessful. This can be used as an example that women are also restricted to the environments they find themselves in. There are many signs that show that it's unsafe for women there. However, unless accompanied by a man, they cannot leave. So this affects the comfort levels of Miriam and Lalia because they're almost living in a prison due to the heavy limitations they face. So with the addition of gender equality, Lalia and Miriam would have been able to flee the mayhem of both their country and their homeland. In the same way, Michael Kimmel explains that countries that have the highest levels of gender equality are proven to have the highest levels of happiness. So this validates that gender equality within a country is needed to fulfill happier lifestyles. And in the same manner, gender equality within a workplace even produces higher production rates and happiness levels. So essentially, gender equality within a country or professional setting produces satisfying results. So the Taliban certainly play a role in creating the unequal atmosphere within the country, primarily because they have this detestable discrimination against women. So ultimately, gender equality plays a huge role in keeping society stable and happy. So by addressing men's sense of entitlement, eliminating traditions based on masculinity, and making the limitations equal for both sides, we can achieve happier environments. And clearly it's something we need to accept because it creates positive outcomes that support happier lifestyles, and that's something everyone desires. So gender equality is not just a woman's issue, it's a human issue that affects us all. And we cannot succeed if half of us are held back.